Hi everyone, thank you for being here with me today, and I'm so glad to see you back. My name is Jessica Boshin, and this is Facebook Live with What I Have Learned. And today we're going to talk about number lines and taking a look at how you can use number lines in your classroom. I'm going to show you a few examples from my second grade classroom that you can also apply to first grade and third grade. I kind of labeled this one as a 1 through 3. Facebook Live in terms of grade level because those are kind of the grades that I concentrate on. The strategies, however, can be applied to pretty much any grade, and there's just a couple of things to keep in mind when you're using number lines, and just to give you a few examples of what they look like and ways to scaffold them for student use. So I hope that you are using number lines in your classroom, especially for your middle elementary grade students, and working with them on some addition and subtraction using them, helping them understand benchmark numbers, and helping them use them as a tool to explain their mathematical thinking. I know that number lines have become a lot more popular in recent years, and they're really just an awesome tool for explaining math thinking. They do take time to teach students how to use number lines, and it takes time for students to understand how to express their thinking using number lines. But once you have set the foundation of them, they become something that becomes part of your everyday classroom journey in math with your students. So I want to show you kind of how we start with number lines, and then some different examples that students have it demonstrated with them over the course of a year, pretty much, is what I'm going to show you. The first thing I'm going to show you is how we start with them at the beginning of the year. There's a couple different things that I do. One thing that I do is take our base 10 blocks. Students are pretty familiar with using base 10 blocks in first grade. And so I take our base 10 blocks and I start with the tens on the bottom. We do the hundreds afterward, of course, because we're in second grade, but the tens are what I start with on the bottom. And I pretty much just tape the, what are they, sticks? The tens rods to, what is this called? A piece of chart paper. Sorry, losing my words. A piece of chart paper here. And then I delineate where each 10 stops, or where each 10 is. And this pretty much sets out your benchmark numbers. I did this one as a classroom demonstration one. However, I would suggest you have table groups do this, or partners do this. And then they can label them with the different 10s that are here, and then be able to find different numbers on it. It pretty much becomes a very large interactive number line that you can use with your students. We also did it with our base 10 mats or flats, or base 10 hundreds ones, and it sets up a similar way to our base 10 ones, the tens rods, but it is a little bit different because it's of course hundreds, and you're counting by hundreds each time. But it does get students to identify some benchmark numbers like 500 or 50 or 900, and be able to see some of those benchmark numbers on there. So just being able to help students focus on and see the where each number is in relation to other numbers. Doing that, with a with base 10 blocks really helps. Let's see, how do I put it? Really helps give a foundation, and a concrete foundation, to something they already use and already know. So students are using base 10 blocks. Let's now apply it to a different math model that they're going to be seeing within second grade. The other way that I have used number lines, and let me pull this over here. So the first one is using base 10 blocks. The other way that I do it is basically use it throughout the year and make it a routine. In our classroom, we have something that's called daily math, and I can put a link to that in the notes down at the bottom as soon as this is over. But every single day we do a page of daily math, and it's in those portable whiteboards. I just use a binder sleeve, what is that called, where you just put a piece of paper in it and you can write on it with a whiteboard marker. So I print one up for students, and every single day we work on creating a number line. At the beginning of the year, we work on numbers 0 through 99, and we create a number line between just to 100. And as students have done some more work with place value, we go up to 1,000. And on our daily math sheet, what we do is we look at how much to 100 or how many more to 1,000, depending on which set of place value numbers we're working on. And with our daily math, we choose a number for the day. At the beginning of the year, I'll make it easier, like we'll do 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and then do some lower numbers like 23, 55. As students are becoming more and more proficient with the tasks on the daily math chart, we'll start bumping up into hundreds and going higher and higher with our numbers. But every day, the key component is that we figure out how much from the given number of the day, this day was 220, in order to get to 1,000. So you can see the student here jumped, and I call them jumps on a number line, from 220 to 300, and then they put plus 80, and then plus 100, plus 100. And eventually, we want students to get to, instead of doing, plus 100, plus 100, I think the student here was going to do plus 500. So this student had made that leap of using a benchmark number of 500 to 1,000, and it was an awesome leap. The next step is to make the leap from 300 to 1,000 and know that that is 700. So you can definitely see how students' thinking progresses over the course of the year just by making number lines an everyday routine that you do with your students. And just working it into different things that you do. We also do number talks in our classroom, and there's a book for that that's really, really good that gives you a whole bunch of different scenarios. And the key foundation of number talks is having students explain their thinking to the whole class. And the teacher records their thinking on chart paper, and so, or a whiteboard, but I generally use chart paper. And in that explanation of thinking, you can use number lines to help model student thinking. So you can use expressions and equations, but also number lines are another tool that you can use to help explain that thinking. The other thing that I recently did in the past couple years was turn number lines on their side. So basically, it's taking a look at making a vertical number line. And I provide these to my students. They're just a half sheet of paper, and then I fold it in half and laminate it. One side of it has 0 to 100. The other one has 0 to, it looks like 200 on here, and it's counting by tens. And so my students use them when we are doing some of our math stations, and it just helps students cross over that 100. A lot of my kiddos, not a lot I guess, but a lot of my lower kiddos actually have difficulty crossing over 100. And they may know some of their math facts, like they can do 5 plus 9, but they can't do 50 plus 90, or in this case, 90 plus 60. This photo might be a little bit difficult to see, but you can see the student circled 90, so at least the student wasn't starting at 0 when they're counting, but they started at 90, and then there's little dots above all the numbers, and it looks like they stopped at 150. I can't quite see it. It's a little small on my screen, so I imagine it's small on yours too. But they just counted up here. The student was able to get the ones when they added, but they needed a little help with the tens. So just providing a number line helps with that. And sometimes you can provide a horizontal number line, and that's great. Sometimes students just need it turned a little bit to be able to work with it. And it just depends on different students. What I tend to do in my room is provide students with a variety of tools and let them choose which one works best for them. So I would provide both a horizontal number line and a vertical number line, model how to use both of them, and then give students a choice between which one they want to use, because different ones will resonate with different students, and it will it'll help extend their mathematical thinking. You definitely want to model how to use them. We do it every day in class. We make it a routine in everything that we do. And here is another example of using number lines. And this occurred to me after a couple years of using them. But the hardest part for students was actually explaining their mathematical thinking. And they had difficulty finding the words to explain what they were doing with the math. Oftentimes they could actually get the answer, which was great, but I couldn't get them to explain their thinking. And I teach in low-income schools with a lot of English learners, and for a lot of kiddos it was a language issue. They just didn't have the words. They didn't know the right, let me see if there's one more. No, they didn't have the right words to figure out what it is that they wanted to say. So these are a set of math centers that I developed, math stations, math centers, and what I did was give students the language and the directions to make the jumps on the number line. So in these cases, they're all pretty simple addition ones, and so we start with adding tens on a number line. So it says start at 50, which we always start with the larger number, make 4 jumps of 10 for this top one, find the number you jump to. And so it was 50, and then the 4 jumps of 10 are how many jumps you make, and in this math station they do the work here, and then they find the equation and the answer to go with it. I'll also show you some of what those look like in a bit as well. Giving students the language that they need in order to be successful in a classroom and successful to explain their thinking is really important. Part of doing number lines is making it a routine, finding the tools that will help students, but also helping them find the right words that they need to be successful with it. How do they explain their thinking? How do they figure out what works and what doesn't work, and learn the it's almost a kinesthetic thing as well. What are the motions of making those jumps? How do I label those jumps? And doing that a couple times during a math center will really help students sort of solidify their thinking. Definitely start with tens. So you can see here it's 40 plus 50 or 70 plus 50. You want to make sure they have experience crossing over that 100, because that's often hard for students to do, especially your lower kiddos who only, hundreds like that big number. My 6-year-old at home and 4-year-old keep talking about 100 being this like gigantic thing. And, it is when you're 7 and 8, but we definitely need to teach them to cross over that 100. The other piece, let me get back to the slide, that's what I just mentioned, is to start with jumps of 10 and 100. This is another math station that we've done, and it's just using dice. We start with it's a little bit different because we start with a concrete number. This one is a 3-digit number, but you can also start with a 2-digit number. They roll the dice, and then they make either jumps of 10 or jumps of 100 all the way up to 1,000, or 10 times is basically what it looks like on the sheet. So it's making jumps of 10 and 100 to start with, because that is sort of the foundation of using number lines. You get to the next, we call it friendly number. In math talk, we call it benchmark number as well, but sort of you get to that next 10, and then you help them make jumps of 10 and then jumps of 100 until they get to where they need to go. I'm hoping I've got one more example. Yes, I do. Alrighty, so toward the end of the year, what I tend to have students do is show their thinking in a variety of ways. So in this particular example, you can see students in this one up here. I don't even know what we were adding together. Like there had to be a context for it, but I don't remember what it was. But you can see it was 49 was one of the or I guess it was I don't even know what the problem was. I think we checked it up there, but here's the work that we did at one point, and I think it was one of our daily word problems. So I've got another product that is about doing word problems a day, and we talk about what's the start, what's in this case, the difference, and then how many they had left. So you can see they handed out a certain amount of papers, and they had this many left. So I think that these were the knowns within the problem, and that was the unknown. So students had to figure out how many papers, I think it was, that they started with. And so in this case, the students started with, in their problem, they started with 15, and then they had to figure out how to get to, let's see, what was it, 15, and then they added 5 to get to 20, and then moving all the way up. Let's see, do I have one more? Nope. Okay, so the idea was to have them demonstrate it in a couple different ways. So when we're working with students, they will grasp onto one one way to solve problems, but we want them to be flexible in their thinking. So whether or not you're using number lines, or you're using some sort of algorithm, or you're using place value strategies, and number lines are part of place value strategies too, help students express their thinking in a variety of ways. So if they demonstrate it one way, say, can you show me what this would look like on a number line? And then help them transfer that thinking into a different model that they may not be as comfortable using, but we want them to extend their mathematical thinking and build those bridges in their head of flexible thinking with it. The other example that I have here is, so I'm just repeating myself, but basically using it as an alternative model. This particular student did a traditional algorithm on the upper right hand corner, I don't know what it is, it's turned upper corner, and then I asked her to model it using a number line down below. So you can see her work down there. So I think the basic ideas are just making sure that you're using them every day, that you're modeling with it, that it becomes an integral tool in your classroom, that students are being flexible with it, using it as an alternate tool. And the last one I want to share with you is just have fun with using them. I let my students use their whiteboard markers on their desk. They easily erase with baby wipes is what we use, but they erase easily. And so during our math stations or other math work, we just write on our desks and we have fun with it. And the kids show me, their work using whiteboard markers and desks. It's a simple tool. It's easy, it's flexible, and just have fun with using math and using number lines, and let kids explore, let them experiment, let them work with the math. And if they're not 100% correct, that's fine. Have them share with another student and they will see their errors. They will learn to navigate number lines, and it will become an integral tool of their math story and their math journey. So just to reiterate a couple of them, make it a routine, make it something you do, have number lines as an alternate strategy that you use in your room, and just experiment, have fun with them. It doesn't have to be perfect every single time. Just, figure out how to integrate them into what you're doing as a classroom, and just try them out every once in a while. They are such an awesome tool to help students develop their mathematical thinking. These examples that I showed you are all second grade examples because that's kind of what I've taught over the past couple years. I'm going to switch over and show you my website. I do have a blog post that is all about number lines. And so this one is number lines for addition and subtraction. And most of the examples in it are for two-digit addition and subtraction. So here's another example of students using, it's one of those wall pops that I had on the table, which do become dirty at the end of the year. So it's a little bit dirtier. But you can tell how the student jumped from 19 to 20 and then went all the way up. I know the 3 at the end is a little hard to see, but you can get what the student is doing there and being able to jump and figure out that subtraction problem by using a number line. Oh, this was the one that was on the whiteboard earlier that you saw in the earlier photo, and the student had finished his work. But the awesome part of this, and this is really cool, the student went from 15 to 20 to 30 to 40 to 50, and they knew that they were 1 away, so they jumped backward by 1. Some of that work won't come out unless the student is using a number line. Like, that is such high level thinking for a second grader to be able to go 1 further and then go backward by 1. It's actually part of the compensation is what we call it in math, and it's just an awesome strategy for students to use, and a number line demonstrates it perfectly. You can do it with equations, and equations work as well, so that's another tool, but just the visualness of going back 1. So that's definitely awesome. This blog post has some of the photos you saw in the presentation already, because it just reiterates some good stuff that you've seen. But one of the other ones that's in here is basically using hundreds charts. So this one has similar directions to the number line that I've used, but it's using a hundreds chart to give those direction. and it just is another tool that students can use when making jumps on a number line, or it's kind of like a condensed number line is what a hundreds chart is. And the other thing I wanted to show you, let me transition back over here, are some resources that I have in my TPT store. So you will see, and let me pull this up so I can actually navigate it. You will see over on the screen here is my TPT store. If you want to click in the quote box, you can sign up for some free resources. And one of them is some models and strategies. I'll let it go for just a second if it'll catch up. There's word problems in here, and there's also models and strategies for 2-digit addition. But what I'm going to show you is if you click on the category for 2-digit addition and subtraction in here, it'll bring up all of my 2-digit addition and subtraction resources. And what you saw in some of the classroom examples here, so you've got number lines, you also have breaking apart by place value, and a lot of the models and strategies that I use for 2-digit addition and subtraction are in these resources. These are the math stations. They're really easy to put together. I just print them out in black and white on just colored paper, and then run them through the laminator, cut them apart, and they become instant math stations that have lasted for years. These are the same, let's see if I can get that up, there you go. These are the same strategies, but they are in worksheet format. So the same directions are on it, the same strategies are practiced, and it's just printable worksheets that are easy to, I don't know, implement, because you just have to photocopy them. For both of these products, they go through strategies such as breaking a number apart into tens and 100s. They go through number lines. They go through what I call like an inverted V, or I don't know, I forget what I call it in the actual one. But they also move from simple problems like tens to more difficult problems like regrouping. And there's a bundled version of it. I also have it with subtraction, as well as a bundled version of addition and subtraction all together. And then there's just a few other resources in here as well that sort of complement it. The dice game here was a roll and spin one. It says winter math games, but there's only actually one activity in here that is winter oriented, and that's the bump game. The rest of them are not winter oriented, so you can totally use that for any time of the year. Let me switch back here, and I will see if you guys have any questions. I totally have not been paying attention to you all because you all with the questions, because I've been navigating between screens and all that kind of stuff. So let me hop on over to the live stream. And yes, the math stations are at my store, Lisa. I will put a link in here for you as soon as I'm done, because multitasking during a Facebook Live is kind of hard sometimes. Admittedly, I can multitask really well, but sometimes it just gets overwhelming. And the templates for the number line, yes, I will share them. I believe they're already available on my website, but I will double check and make sure that they're in that blog post for you, and I'll leave a link here. And Number Talks, yes, it is a great book. I love it. I've used it in kindergarten and first grade and second grade, because those are the grade levels that I have taught when I found out about the book, actually. So what was it, like 6 years ago or so? And it is a wonderful resource to be able to use with students. I love the discussion that comes up with them, and how students can actually build off of each other's conversations with it. It's really cool to see them form a community of math around it. So that's awesome. So yes, I will post links in here and give you all the resources you need, as well as point you in the right direction. So as always, if you have any other questions, feel free to leave comments down below, and I will totally answer them. And you can send me an email. You can, however you want to communicate with me is totally up to you. Message me, all that good stuff. So Have a great Friday. It is the weekend, well, in a couple of hours. Whether you're back at work teaching or you're still on summer break, I just thank you for being here with me. And you can tune in tomorrow for one more Facebook Live. I'm going to take next week off from doing Facebook Live because we've got one more family vacation that we're doing. I may do a few spontaneous ones throughout the week, but I don't have things actually scheduled. And then I'll be back the following week, first week of August, for another set of them. And then after that, we'll see what you all want in terms of topics and resources and all that. So then we'll move on from there. So thank you for joining me on here, and I really appreciate it. Have a good end of your Friday, and rest, relax, rejuvenate over the weekend with your family and friends. Bye, guys.